What is life? OSHO on Kabir. Have you ever observed that in life, we keep insisting we know, yet we truly do not? What is it that you know? Have you ever truly known anything? If I ask, why are trees green? Could you answer? The best answer I ever heard was from D.H. Lawrence. A child walking in a garden with him asked, why are trees green? D.H. Lawrence looked up at the tree, then into the child's eyes and said, they are green because they are green. That is the most honest answer there ever was. What more can be said? If you try to explain otherwise, by any means, you end up sounding foolish. It loses its meaning. You might say that trees are green because of chlorophyll, but then why is chlorophyll green? The question remains. I pose a question, you provide an answer, yet the question is never truly resolved. OSHO. Kabir and the infinite inheritance of humanity. We know very little about Kabir, and perhaps that is fortunate, for when you know too much about a person, you tend to misunderstand him. When you know nothing at all about someone, matters become less complicated. This is why in the East, one of the most rigorously preserved traditions is to speak little of mystics, so as not to obstruct people's paths. We know little about Krishna, and we know little about the Buddha. Everything we know about them is more theological than historical, largely mythical and unreal. But as for Kabir, there isn't even myth. He is not too ancient, yet he lived in a way that made himself almost vanish. He left no trace behind. Only politicians leave marks on time. Mystics, however, live beyond time. They leave no footprints, no signatures. They do not believe in inscribing their names on the sands of time, knowing well that those marks will eventually be erased. To sign one's name there is futile. Kabir spoke little of himself, and little is known about him. No one even knows whether he was a follower of Hinduism or Islam. It is said that he was born a Muslim but raised by a Hindu devotee, and that is something beautiful, something worth living for. It is what gives him his richness. He embodied two distinct traditions, Hindu and Islamic. If you were solely a Hindu devotee, you would of course be impoverished. If solely a Muslim, you too would be impoverished. Look at the richness I possess. I am a devotee of Hinduism, of Islam, of Christianity, of Sikhism, and of Zoroastrianism. Moreover, I am both a theist and an atheist. I embrace the entire heritage of humanity. I accept everything. I reject nothing. From the Charvakas to the Buddha, I embrace it all. All of humanity is yours. The entire evolution of human consciousness belongs to you. And yet, you remain miserly. Some people become Hindu devotees and take only a small corner, living in that cramped, paralyzed space. In reality, that corner is so narrow that it leaves you immobile, not expansive enough for growth. A true person of faith should embrace everything: Buddha, Mahavir, Christ, Zarathustra, Lao Tzu, Nanak, Kabir. They should be received wholly. They are a part of me. They are a part of you. Whatever happens to the collective consciousness of humanity, you carry its seeds within you. Kabir, the blooming of an ordinary soul. There is one thing to understand about Kabir. He was born a Muslim, raised as a Hindu devotee, and belonged to no one. Even at the moment of his death, his legacy remained a subject of heated debate among his disciples. Hindu followers demanded his body, as did the Muslims, and there is an intriguing story about it. Kabir left a will regarding his death. Knowing full well that the foolish crowd would fight over his remains and that conflict would ensue, he left this message: "If a dispute arises, cover my body with a cloth and wait. The answer will come." And the story goes that after the cloth was laid over Kabir's body, both Hindus and Muslims began to pray. When the cloth was finally removed, Kabir had vanished. Only a few flowers remained, which were then divided among them. What a beautiful parable! I do not claim this story is literally true, but it speaks volumes. A man like Kabir has disappeared. He is no longer present in his physical form. He is in the process of blossoming from within. We inhabit our bodies only up to a certain stage. The body has a purpose to fulfill, to serve as the vessel for the blooming of the mind's inner self. Once the mind has blossomed, the body's continued existence becomes irrelevant. It simply no longer matters. Isn't it a lovely image? When the covering is removed, only a few delicate blossoms remain. Kabir is like a flower in full bloom. Only a few flowers are left. And even his foolish disciples failed to grasp this truth. They ended up quarreling over those few blossoms. Kabir's songs are exquisitely beautiful. He was a poet, not a philosopher. He did not create a system or formulate theories. He was neither a theorist nor a theologian. He cared little for doctrines or scriptures. Instead, he poured all his energy into the art of blossoming, ultimately becoming a saint. His entire endeavor was aimed at making you love more deeply and awaken more fully. For Kabir, the quest is not about accumulating more knowledge, but about shedding what is unnecessary. In that way, he was a truly rare phenomenon. Figures like the Buddha, Mahavir, Krishna, and Rama are considered special. They are like kings, endowed with education and culture. Kabir, on the other hand, was no one in particular. He belonged to the common people, humble and unlettered, without attachment to any single tradition. And that is precisely his rarity. I call it his uniqueness because being ordinary in this world is the most extraordinary thing of all. He remained profoundly ordinary, truly always just an ordinary man. The natural longing of the human mind is to become special. Special in the sense of acquiring numerous degrees, political power, wealth, and riches. In order to become special, the mind embarks on a journey of the ego. And if you grow weary of this world, the ego begins to seek new ways to elevate itself. That is the power of the spirit. You become a Mahatma, a great sage, a revered scholar, a knowledgeable person, a selfless sacrificer, and once again, you strive to be special. But until that yearning to be special is extinguished, you will never truly become special. Until you relax into the natural state of your being, you will never find true ease. The truly spiritual is completely ordinary. The truly spiritual person is completely ordinary. Kabir is very ordinary. You will not find him in a crowd. His uniqueness is not outwardly apparent. You cannot discern it merely by looking at his face. And that is the difficulty. Buddha was special, a remarkably beautiful person with a captivating, dignified aura. Jesus was extraordinary, strong with a revolutionary, uplifting spirit. But what about Kabir? He was an ordinary man, truly, very ordinary. Remember, when I say ordinary, I do not mean average. Average is not the same as ordinary. Average is merely being unusual in an ordinary way. Like everyone else, he was mad in his own manner. In truth, in this world, a truly ordinary person does not exist. I once heard the following story. A famous psychiatrist, while teaching a class on abnormal psychology at a university, was asked by a student, "Doctor, You've described the behavior of abnormal people. What about the normal ones? The doctor, a bit flustered, replied, "In my entire life, I have never encountered a normal person, and if we were to find one, we would cure him." Kabir is that normal person, the one you will never actually meet, the one who has no desire to become special. Even after his awakening, he lived an ordinary life. He was a weaver. He continued to be a weaver. Kabir's disciples grew in number, from hundreds to thousands, even tens of thousands. They would always urge him to cease his weaving work. "Master, you need not work any longer. We will take care of you." But Kabir would smile and reply, "I must continue the work that God has destined for me. I do not wish to become someone else. Let me do what I am meant to do, what God wishes me to do. If God intends for me to be a weaver, that is why I am a weaver. I was born to weave, and I shall die as a weaver." He continued living his ordinary life. He still went to the market, drew water from the well, and carried it home. He lived in a most ordinary manner. This is one of the most important points to understand. He never proclaimed that he possessed great knowledge, because no one truly knowledgeable does so. To know is to be unaware. To be unaware is to know. Only then can one truly know. A wise person understands deeply that he knows nothing. This profound state of not knowing gives rise to purity. From that very emptiness, clarity emerges. When you know, you become cunning. When you know, you become shrewd. And yet, in knowing, you lose the pure innocence of childhood. Kabir declared that he was ignorant, that he knew nothing. This must be understood, for it is the very foundation upon which you can grasp his poetry. So where do Kabir's poems come from? They arise from his pure, unadulterated inner light, a blossoming of that inner purity. He says he does not know. Have you ever observed that in life, we keep insisting we know, yet we truly do not? What is it that you know? Have you ever truly known anything? If I ask, why are trees green? Could you answer? The best answer I ever heard was from D.H. Lawrence. A child, walking in a garden with him, asked, "Why are trees green?" D.H. Lawrence looked up at the tree, then into the child's eyes and said, "They are green because they are green." That is the most honest answer there ever was. What more can be said? If you try to explain otherwise, by any means, you end up sounding foolish. It loses its meaning. You might say that trees are green because of chlorophyll, but then why is chlorophyll green? The question remains. I pose a question, you provide an answer, yet the question is never truly resolved. You have lived with a woman for 30 years and call her your wife, or with a man for 50 years. Do you really know that man or that woman? When your child is born, do you truly know it? Do you look into its eyes? Would you dare claim that you know it? What do you really know? Do you know what a rock is? Scientists will offer many explanations, yet none of them become true knowledge. They say it is made of electrons, protons, and neutrons. But what is an electron? They shrug and say, "We don't know." They claim, "We have not yet known," with the hope that someday they might. No, they will never truly know, for at first they say, a rock is made of atoms. And when asked, "What are atoms?" they reply, "We do not know." Then they say, "Atoms consist of electrons." Now ask, "What is an electron?" And they answer, "We do not know." Someday, they might describe electrons as consisting of this and that, X, Y, Z, but it makes no difference. Embrace the mystery, Kabir's poetry of silence and the unspoken truth. The ultimate cannot be reduced to mere knowledge. The supreme remains an enigma. If the Supreme is a mystery, then life becomes wondrous. When the Supreme is unknown, poetry arises. But if the Supreme is known, or if you believe it to be so, philosophy appears. That is the difference between philosophy and poetry. Kabir's approach is that of a poet, a lover, one who constantly asks, "What is life?" Not knowing, he sings. Not knowing, he prays. Not knowing, he bows his head. The poet's method is not to explain, but to express. He exclaims, "Aha, aha, this too is mystery." Wherever you find mystery, there is God. The more you think you know, the less you truly perceive God. When you know little, God draws nearer to you. If you can confidently say, "I do not know," and if that statement comes from deep within your being, then God will reside right at that center, in the very heartbeat of your soul. And then poetry will emerge, and someone will come to love the boundless mystery that radiates around you. That love is faith. Faith does not pursue explanations. Having faith means not seeking an answer. Instead, it is an endless journey into love. I invite you to join me in venturing into the sacred realm of the mad Kabir. Yes, he is considered mad. Indeed, all true devotees are, for they do not cling to rational premises. They are mad because they love life, mad because they can dance and sing. For them, life is not a question or a problem to be solved. It is a mystery into which they dissolve completely. So, at the very outset of your journey, I urge you to remain pure. Only then can you understand Kabir. Do not engage your mind in debate with him. He is not a logician. When you gaze upon a painting, you do not argue with it. You simply admire it. When you listen to a guitarist, you do not quarrel over every note. When you meet a poet, you do not debate. You listen to the poetry without contention. Yet, with religion, difficulties arise. When you listen to a pious person, you may be tempted to argue. And the blame falls on those pious individuals because they argue. Some fools even insist on debating in order to prove God's existence, as if God depended on your argument, as if, without debate, God would not manifest, as if God were merely a syllogism. Kabir does not argue. His affirmations resemble the ancient utterances of the Upanishads, the proclamations of Muhammad in the Quran, or the declarations of Jesus in the Bible. He simply feels. He sings of his own inner experience. Let yourself feel him. There is not a question in his mind. Set your own mind aside. If you wish to understand, you must silence your thoughts. Listen to Kabir as one listens to poetry. He is a poet. Therefore, do not focus on each word. Instead, listen to the essence of the language, its rhythm, its melody. Listen to Kabir's blessings. He is not here to preach. He is like a cherry blossom tree. On a full moon night, its blossoms appear effortlessly. They do not argue. They simply exist in their beauty. This is the explosion of life. Kabir has blossomed into a song, and there are two possibilities. Whenever enlightenment appears, a person either becomes utterly silent or blossoms into a song. These are the two outcomes. When Meher Baba attained enlightenment, he became silent and remained so throughout his life. When Mira was enlightened, she began to dance and sing. Thus, one either becomes completely silent or one's life becomes a continual song. Kabir's very life is that song. But remember, in the midst of his song lies silence. And also recall that in Meher Baba, or those like him, there is a song hidden within their silence. If you attentively listen to the silence of Meher Baba, you will be filled with a song. You will feel it pouring into you. And if you listen to Kabir with quietude, you will discover that his song is the very message of silence. The Iron Gates of Ignorance and the Awakening of Love. Kabir on True Normality. Truly spiritual individuals are completely ordinary. Kabir is one of those rare souls who appeared on this earth. He belonged to the highest class of mystics, yet it is astonishing that he had little formal education, followed no specific cultural tradition, and was orphaned. Despite living the impoverished life of a weaver, he wove extraordinarily beautiful verses. His language was raw yet profound, filled with deep meaning. He once said, "Ignorance locks the iron gates." The word ignorance carries an unexpected beauty. You typically think of ignorance as mere lack of knowledge, but its true meaning is a deliberate disregard, the act of ignoring those things that might otherwise become your wisdom. And all day, all your life, you continuously overlook your own self. You care for every little thing around you, yet you never pay attention to the most precious possession you have, yourself. Kabir uses ignorance in this very sense. Neglecting yourself is the only true neglect, and it is what shuts the iron gates. But love will open those iron gates. These are the words of one who truly understands. A learned person might say that knowledge opens doors, but only a truly wise person declares that love opens those iron gates. The mind remains perpetually unaware. It cannot break free. Even if armed with knowledge, the mind cannot achieve deep insight. Only the heart can unlock those gates. Only love can render you fully awake. The sound of a gate swinging open awakens the sleeping beauty. These words are rich in symbolism. According to Kabir, your soul is like a woman in a deep slumber. He uses the image of a woman to represent your soul and consciousness because it is those very feminine qualities, beauty, sincerity, authenticity, that truly embody spirituality. In Eastern languages, terms for consciousness, awareness, samadhi, or sambodhi are all marked as feminine. Those who love and empathize naturally radiate feminine grace. Men, on the other hand, often tend to be aggressive, embodying the qualities of a warrior, a soldier, a man driven by pride or even fanaticism. Such masculine traits, when taken to extremes, can even resemble the rigid qualities of a Nazi. No wonder, then, that while most nations call their homeland motherland, Germany uniquely refers to itself as fatherland. Germany is an anomaly, and perhaps it is time for a change. The language we use shapes our perceptions. For instance, Adolf Hitler misinterpreted Friedrich Nietzsche's writings, misunderstanding that true wisdom lies not in cold logic, but in the embracing of love. Nietzsche himself once wrote that his most beautiful experience was on a clear morning when he witnessed a regiment with shining rifles marching in perfect cadence, a sight and sound so sublime that it rivaled all earthly music. Eastern thought always holds that while masculine qualities can be practical, they often lack the tenderness, sensitivity, and compassion of the feminine. That is why Kabir declares, "The sound of a gate opening awakens the sleeping beauty." Kabir urges, do not let such an opportunity pass by. And I too implore you, do not let this chance slip away. Here, we strive to awaken the inner woman within you, to awaken your consciousness, your grace, and your beauty. Do not let this opportunity pass by. Kabir, messenger of the future, the Christ of the East. Kabir is a messenger, an ambassador of the future, the very first flower that heralds the coming of spring. He is among the greatest poets ever to walk this earth. He is not a theologian, nor does he belong to any one religion. In fact, all religions belong to him. He is so vast that he encompasses them all. He is not defined by any single faith. He is a devotee of Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, and Buddhism, all at once. He is a magnificent beauty, a grand poem, a sublime symphony. And yet he was utterly uneducated. This man was a weaver, a poor man. In India, he was a rare phenomenon. While figures like the Buddha, Mahavira, Rama, and Krishna are exalted as princes, Indian society is so preoccupied with material wealth that, regardless of what its leaders say, their words are imbued with a spiritual meaning tied to riches. They are obsessed with materialism, even to the point of hypocrisy. Even when they denounce material wealth, they remain materialistic. They praise the Buddha because he dared to renounce the palace, yet the palace itself still holds value. It is precisely by renouncing extreme opulence that the Buddha is honored. Kabir, however, is a truly rare phenomenon, a poor man recognized for the first time as a child of God, a recognition traditionally reserved for kings, princes, and the affluent. Kabir is, in a sense, the Christ of the East. Christ, the carpenter's son, spoke in a manner very much like Kabir. They share many similarities. They both belong to this earth. They are thoroughly worldly, yet both possess a remarkable intuitive insight. They are exceedingly simple. Perhaps that is why their words carry such profound power. Their wisdom does not come from universities or formal education. It arises from lived experience, from being among the people. Their teachings are not academic knowledge. They are not the work of scholars or priests. They are the voice of ordinary folk. In Kabir, for the first time, a poor man dared to speak of the beauty of God. It is exceedingly difficult for a poor person to express the grace of God or to cultivate faith. In my view, if you encounter a wealthy person who lacks faith, then he is truly foolish. Genuine spirituality will emerge even in abundance. If you have everything, you must have faith. It is inevitable. For when one has it all on the outside, yet is empty within, even a fool can see. I have everything, but I have nothing inside. If a rich person does not experience this inner emptiness, he is, in truth, profoundly and utterly foolish. For the poor, having faith is extraordinarily challenging. They must possess an exceptional insight. For the impoverished have little to call their own. When you are poor, it is hard to perceive the futility of this world. You have not fully experienced it. Only by truly understanding can you recognize what you lack and thus see its vanity. That is why I hold Christ and Kabir in higher regard. They possess everything. They traverse the world unburdened. The Buddha amassed all the lavish riches attainable over 25 centuries ago. And yet, it is perfectly natural for the Buddha to have realized that nothing lies within mere external beauty, that it is but a dream. One need not be exceptionally wise to see that material wealth does not satisfy. Lived experience reveals its emptiness and the ever-present dissatisfaction. But for Kabir or Christ, such recognition is far more arduous. They are not kings. They are poor, even unable to meet their basic needs. Thus, they can truly hope, dream, and yearn. To understand that this world is ultimately meaningless, you must be a great genius. Kabir was unlettered yet possessed an extraordinary mind. His eyes penetrated so deeply that he could see the vanity of everything he lacked. He could see it without grasping it. His perceptual power was astonishing. He offers us a fleeting glimpse of the future of religion. Everything Kabir spoke was not recorded in books. He conveyed his truth orally to his disciples. This was natural revelation. He was a singer and a poet. If someone requested, he would spontaneously sing a song. No one has ever sung quite like he did. The truly awakened person is, in a sense, a fool. Remember, when journeying with Kabir, the enlightened one is no different from a fool. What leads to true awakening is the recognition that you are a fool. Our mind is that of a fool, Lao Tzu once said, and Kabir would wholeheartedly agree. It is as empty as a fool's mind, empty, without placing importance on one thing over another. True reverence holds nothing, it welcomes all. Kabir is the master of this. He embraces everything, the entire spectrum of life, the full rainbow of existence. His words are not philosophy, they are pure unadorned verse. They are not religion, they are a gesture, a door left slightly ajar, a mirror polished until it shines. It is the path back home, the way to return to nature. For Kabir, nature itself is God, trees, rocks, rivers, mountains. He does not believe in temples, churches, or shrines. He believes in living in the reality of life. God is there, breathing, blooming, overflowing. And where are you? You go to temples, places crafted by people to worship idols that are themselves human creations, in the image of God. Kabir calls you home. What are you doing in those temples and churches? He summons you back to celebrate life. When he first set foot in that nameless realm, Kabir immediately composed a beautiful poem that included the line, "The dewdrop has fallen into the ocean." His verses are truly exquisite. Herat, Herat, Heisaki, Rahya Kabir Herayi. Oh my friend, my beloved, I went searching for myself. But something strange happened. Instead of finding myself, I vanished like a dewdrop in the ocean. Bunda samani samunda menso kathirijai. The dewdrop has disappeared into the ocean. Now, how can you ever find that dewdrop again? That was his very first experience. From then on, he grew ever more awakened to the vastness of the ocean and forgot all about the dewdrop. Before his death, he called his son Kamal, a name surely given by Kabir, for Kamal means miracle, and his son must be a miracle. He summoned Kamal and said, "I am about to leave this body. Before I depart, I want you to amend one of my verses, a small change. I had written that the dewdrop vanishes into the ocean. You must reverse that. Write instead that the ocean vanishes into the dewdrop. For now I have come to understand it from the other side. My first experience came from this shore. Now I speak from a farther, higher shore. Now I know that the dewdrop does not disappear into the ocean. Rather, the ocean disappears into the dewdrop." Kamal replied, "Father, I have always doubted that verse. May I show you my record?" And Kamal presented his written note to Kabir, where he had crossed out the original line. Kabir said, "You are indeed Kamal, truly a miracle. You have anticipated even me. That line has now been erased." Kamal then said, "From the very beginning I doubted that this was the pronouncement of one who had just begun to understand the realm of void. But once that person becomes void, this statement becomes completely wrong. Therefore, Father, you are now fully awake, right before your departure. I am delighted that you are no longer a beginner. You have become part of the whole." And then his son wrote a new line. "The ocean has vanished into the dewdrop." Kabir, the poor weaver of divine love. Kabir was a poor man. To the outside world he was nothing. But in the inner world he stood shoulder to shoulder with figures like Gautama Buddha, Lao Tzu, and Zarathustra. Naturally, his words could not be expressed in the language of intellectuals or academia, and that is no misfortune at all. In fact, it is a blessing that he used the language of common folk to reveal a beauty that scholars could never match. He imbued ordinary, everyday language, the language of the marketplace, with a mysterious grace, transforming it into a symbol of the Supreme. But he knew no other language. Though he experienced the highest truth, his language was that of a weaver, for he was a weaver. Throughout his life, he wove clothes that he brought to market every Sunday. Despite the widespread news that he had awakened, that he had attained enlightenment, and that thousands, including kings and the wealthy, came seeking him, he never abandoned his work. He continued to weave. Kabir's disciples pleaded with him countless times, "Master, we can take care of all your needs. You need nothing more." He had only one son, one wife, and they lived in humble simplicity. Yet Kabir always refused. He would say, "God created me to be a weaver, and I cannot be otherwise. Do you not think of those who wear the clothes I weave? I weave with love and joy, with an embracing spirit and a depth of awareness that no one else can match. What will become of my customers? I weave for them because each customer is a representative of the sacred. I serve that which is sacred. Do not disturb me." Because Kabir was a weaver, his language always reflected his craft, shaped by the vocabulary of his trade. Kabir once said, "I leave behind this intact cloak." These were his final words, spoken just minutes before he passed away. He declared, "I leave behind this intact cloak. I have worn it with reverence and have set it aside exactly as I received it, untarnished, without even a scratch or a spot. O swan, spread your wings and embark on the solitary journey." That final moment, the letting go of the body, the final departure of the mind from the flesh, is rendered in the mystical language of the East by the image of the swan. The swan symbolizes the soul because it is so white, so pure, especially the swans of the Himalayas, as pure as the eternal snows of those peaks. Because of that whiteness, that purity. And the swan dwells in distant, scarcely trodden parts of the Himalayas, namely Lake Mansarovar, the highest lake in the world, frozen for 9 months with only 3 months of thaw. Yet the swan never misses its appointment. It always returns to Mansarovar every 9 months. Strangely, the months when it is absent from Mansarovar are when the swan is birthing. Even when they depart, their eggs remain unhatched. Then, right on schedule, the young swans take flight toward Mansarovar. The parent swans never encounter their offspring, and the young never know of Mansarovar, yet once hatched, they immediately fly in its direction. This is a message of profound importance. You do not know your origins. With no guide and no map, you must journey alone. Yet every young swan finds its way back to Mansarovar. Likewise, we do not belong to this mundane world. It is not our true home. Sooner or later, the moment will come when your consciousness unfurls its wings and flies home. Kabir declared his farewell just before leaving his body, a body represented by the cloak. In Hindi, this cloak is called chadariya. I leave behind this intact cloak. Just as I received it, I did not mar it, not a scratch, not a single blemish. I will leave it pristine, clean, and immaculate, just as it was given to me. I have worn it with deep reverence. Understand that Kabir did not oppose the body. He used his body with gratitude, and then left it intact, exactly as he had found it. Now is the time to let it go, leaving it exactly as it was received. Kabir's words are breathtakingly beautiful, so exquisite that their musicality is nearly impossible to capture in another language. They carry a cadence that is easily lost unless heard in their original tongue. Jyon ki tyon dhari dinhi chadariya, khoob jatan kar odhi chadariya. And now, even this cloak, the chadariya that you have worn your entire life, cannot accompany you. Your wife, your children, your friends, your disciples, none can walk the final path with you. You must journey alone. This is the solitary pilgrimage to that lonely destination. O swan, spread your wings and embark on the solitary journey. Before closing his eyes, Kabir blessed his disciples. He said that the chadariya is but a simple cloth laid out on a bed, a cloth with which one may wrap oneself. He told his disciples, "Cover someone with this cloak, this chadariya." One disciple asked, "Why, Master?" Kabir replied, "Then you will know." Kabir's body was draped in the very cloth he had used throughout his life. The lonely journey to ultimate truth. I have come to the place where Kabir passed away, right near Varanasi, on the other side of the Ganges. According to Hindu tradition, Varanasi is the oldest city in the world, and it certainly seems so. In the heart of the city, you cannot drive a car because the streets are so narrow that you can only walk. No vehicle can pass through. The roads were built long before bullock carts were invented, as they are simply too narrow to allow any form of modern transport. In the ancient quarters of Varanasi, the streets are so shaded by tall buildings that sunlight scarcely touches them, while the lanes are so narrow that only two people can walk side by side. Only for a few seconds, when the sun climbs to its zenith, do a few rays manage to break through, only to quickly fade back into shade. These streets remain wonderfully cool, as if air-conditioned, a state preserved for countless centuries. On the opposite bank of the Ganges lies the small village of Maghar, where Kabir died. His memorial tomb was divided into two parts, one maintained by Muslims and the other by Hindus. This division exemplifies the foolishness of mankind. You worship the same person, you love the same person, you breathe in his philosophy and speak his language, yet your minds remain predetermined. The part of the tomb built by the Muslims is adorned with flowers, while the part built by the Hindus features an arrangement where the flowers are burned. Though both groups commemorate him, a wall separates them. One side belongs to Hindus, the other to Muslims. The Muslims will not cross into the Hindu side, and vice versa. And this is how they remember the same person. They have scattered meaningless, foolish distinctions among people. I tell you, whether it is Varanasi, Jerusalem, or Mecca, there is no real difference. They are all reflections of your own inner consciousness. If you die within your own inner world, you will attain the highest bliss, a state that belongs to no single religion. But you must make this journey alone. The crowd you belong to does not guarantee that you will reach the ultimate truth. Ultimate truth is always solitary, personal. O swan, spread your wings and embark on the solitary journey.